So the next section is about how to cut the penny rug circles, and first we'll do the machines, and I'm trying to have my computer so that you can see it, but I will post the links on the group. And the first I want to talk about is the machines that you use, and the first is the AccuQuilt. That's just another part of the AccuCut company, and these are supposedly for quilting, and once a quilter always a quilter, and that would be my on my wish list if you can see that, if I were to use a fabric cutter. They are some of them are very expensive. This one you save $200, so that's a good buy, except it's not in Canada, of course. I don't know really anything about the machines. They are, if you buy the expensive ones, it's quite a layout of money, so you really need to research the machines and what they do and which one is right for you. I would say that if you are not someone that commercially makes and sells rugs, to look at the machines doing a multi-purpose thing. For instance, if you're a quilter, then these are perfect for you. And then there are some other ones. These are the AccuCut machines, and I actually don't know anything about those at all. They're not as expensive. The other thing is to remember to check the dies that are available for the machines, the sizes, and also to investigate how much work you need to do before you actually put your wool in and cut your pennies. Some of the smaller machines you may need to do other things. I'll get rid of this. These are the Sizzix machines and the Big Shot and the Big Shot Express, and I know some of you on the group have some of these machines, so I'm going to ask you to give us a little some idea of how they work and how you like them. And they are all sizes, and again, I don't know anything about them, but there are two groups on Facebook, one for the AccuCut machines and one for the Sizzix machines. So if you decide that you do want to invest in them, those would be good groups to join and ask any questions, because I'm sure you'll get a lot of answers there. The other way, and the way that I'm going to show you next, is how we cut our pennies, and that is with the wool punches. Ours aren't really wool, ours are industrial punches, but this is Sue Spargo's site, and she sells the punches for the wool, and she also sells the mat, and I will give you that link as well. And they range from 2-inch punch is $115, so it is again a good investment, a good bit of money, but they last forever, almost. Ours do anyway. And there are some pluses and minuses with the punches, and we will go into that in the next video. Now, these are our punches. This is how we punch our circles, and these punches are very old, probably 40-50 years old. They're definitely older than Lucas, and they're worn. We've had them welded. This is the big 2-inch, and we've had it welded a few times. These are industrial punches. They're for making gaskets out of rubber. And there are two terms, and I'm not sure which, and I'm not sure the difference. One is called a hollow punch, and the other is called an arch punch. The arch punch is made by a company named Osborne, and they apparently are the best. So if your better half, your other half, we're the better half. If your other half does woodworking or does automotive or something like that, you may just have some of these. The thing about the punches, and I do have a video of Luke punching some pennies with them, I can't use them, because what you do is you put your punch down. You have to hold your hand here, and you take your hammer. Sometimes you use a mallet, a rubber mallet, but this is a ball peen, and usually you use this, and you have to punch down on this hard enough to cut the wool. Well, I'm fine on the upswing, but when my swing comes down, the momentum goes, because I think, what happens if I miss and I hit my hand? So I can't do it, but I'm the only one in the family that can't do it. Krista can do it, Lucas, and of course Luke does it. The other thing is, Luke chokes the hammer. He has his hand here, and really you're supposed to have it back here, and that's your swing, that's your force for it. There are a couple things, once you see the video with Luke cutting the pennies, you definitely could not use these if you live in an apartment building or a condo because of the noise. You also need a good cutting mat, and that will help that the edges won't dull. You also will need to sharpen the edges. They're not going to stay sharp forever, so you need to know how to sharpen them. And the other thing is, you need a very solid surface. Now, this is not something that you can do on the kitchen table, because your force will come down and it will go to the table, and the table's not solid, and it will stop your punch from cutting right through. So you need a very solid surface. We use a counter that's built quite a bit. A lot of it's very solid. It's not where there's doors or something like that. We have a set of drawers, and it's a lot of wood there, so it's very solid. You need something like that to put your cutting board on and do your pennies. So these have cut since I started penny rugs, and they've probably cut millions. There are others. This type, this is not like these. These you can buy. These are very rusted. We don't use these, but you can buy them in small sizes, and you can buy them at Lee Valley or a hardware store or automotive store. And these you would use to make the smaller pennies. It's not something that you use a lot, but smaller pennies are very difficult to cut by hand. I don't know if there are dies that size for the smaller pennies, but they're almost impossible to cut by hand. They're very tedious and very much work to do. And if you're going to do a rug with a lot of pennies, and I'll show you the layouts later, it would be worth it to investigate and look for those if you are in a position where you can use punches. So I will put the other video on. This is of Luke using the punches, and then we will go to doing the pennies with freezer paper. So the next way to cut pennies, and it's not my favorite, it's not the what I would say the best way, but it's fine, it can be done, is to use freezer paper and trace your circles. Now, the thing with freezer paper is you can use it over and over again. So if you have a rug that you're going to do with, say, 120 some pennies, that does not mean that you have to trace 120 some of these circles on your freezer paper. I would say probably 4 to 6 times you can use your freezer paper. 4 for sure, absolutely. The other thing with freezer paper is on some wool, it sticks really well. If it's a very hairy wool, maybe, I don't know how to explain it. It sticks quite well. So if you need to, you would iron your freezer paper on just a piece of cloth or something to get some of the sticky off, and then you would iron it on your wool. Now, I don't suggest, I know that it would save wool, but I don't suggest using this method on your freezer paper. The first thing is you need to have a little, you can see it, don't put them together, close together like this. You need a tiny bit of space, because when you cut, you don't want to cut into your circle. You're going to have a flat spot. So you need enough room to cut so that your circle is on both sheets of paper. You can see that. This, I know it saves wool, but it is a dickens of a time to get those cut out. It's not worth the effort, really. You can do it with scissors. You can cut. I like to use my rotary cutter whenever possible, and I actually bought this set at Michael's for 50% off, and it's well worth it. It's a small mat, a good cutter, and of course I use this. You can use a plastic ruler or something, but I use this. And so I would go very close, but not on the line, and I cut through, and I know you're going to say, oh my goodness, oh, well, I have to open that first, don't I? You'd say, oh my goodness, don't use your rotary cutter for that. But I have a couple rotary cutters, and I use one for fabric, and I use the other for paper. So I would cut them like that, and you would just cut them in strips like this. Then you cut them apart, being careful not to cut on the lines. You go in between the lines, and you keep going like that. The difficult part is to cut them out, because you have no guide. You just have to go. And you do need small scissors. I can use these with my templates, but I can't use them with this. It's just not enough control. So then you have to be very careful and cut on that line, especially if you want to reuse your pennies. And it's very carefully and tedious. Just keep going. And that's where you'd have a flat spot, so you need to. Actually, you could use a little bit more space in between these. I never use these to cut, so I sort of didn't have enough space there when I marked them out. And it's so easy to stray from the line. It's just a bit tedious. But there it is. And you take your circle off. And then you just take your circles and you iron them back on, and you can cut again. There's no need to do extras. So that is the freezer paper method. It's, as I say, it's not my favorite. Now I'm going to show you my favorite and how very neat and slick it is. So that's the next video. So these are Colleen's, and I will show you how to use these. They come in a nice keychain thing to keep them there, but I don't do mine and I lose them most of the time. I'm going to do a 2-inch. So of course first I cut a strip, and I'm going to cut it a bit larger again than the 2-inch. So I'm going to do 2 1/4. Okay, and then I cut it in squares, and I'm going to do probably what? The same again. That's good. Okay, so, and I would do that for as many squares as I need for my rug. And this is how I cut my circles if Luke doesn't cut them. When I'm designing a rug, I usually hand cut to get the colors right and everything. And now here's the magic. This is double-faced tape, just the cheap stuff that you buy at the dollar store. And you take a piece off, you put it in the center, or close to the center, doesn't matter where. Peel the backing off. Put it on your square, and it stays. You see, it stays. You don't have to hold it, so you guide. This is just, it's not holding tight. You just guide it. This is up high enough so that it rests on the edge of the scissors. And you just go around. Mindless work. You can do it in the evening when you're watching TV or something. And there it is. You can do it again. You can put it on. Use it several times, probably 6 times I would say. It's depending on your wool. And the same thing. It's just so easy. And you can also use larger scissors with the larger pennies. I don't recommend it with the smaller ones. And there it is. Again, isn't that neat? No trouble at all. Much easier than the freezer paper. And as I say, this guides. You know, it's up high enough. The tape makes it up a bit higher so that you're not cutting into your plastic. Sometimes you do that if you hold it with your hand, and it just makes it really neat to do. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things that you can do with the circles, and she has all sorts of different sizes. And if you notice, I don't know if you can tell, I have a hole in the center, and I'm going to show you how to use that when we do our stitching video, because you can use these as a guide for stitching as well. So those are the different ways to use the freezer paper, the plastic templates, and then of course the machines and the punches. So it just depends on your preference, on what you like to do. These are from Colleen, and they are probably the next best thing to either the punches or the machines. Very easy, very simple. You can do them in an evening. It's no work. And she has these for sale in her Etsy shop. I will, of course, have the link to her shop. And she is away at the moment, but she will fill orders when she gets home, and I think she may have something special planned for the group if you want to order any of these. So the next video we will start on how to put your penny rug circles together, what size goes with each circle, how to layer them, and that will be the next video, but that's for another day. I'm quite finished with talking to myself for today. I'm getting a little batty doing it. So I hope you enjoyed the videos, and we will be back to do the stitches and how to stack the pennies, and then the most important thing is working on layouts. So I hope you enjoy.